I never thought I'd find myself staring into a pile of hotel receipts in the trash, feeling like I'd just been hit by a truck. But there they were, crisp paper, smudged with dirt, crumpled in a way that made my stomach turn. I'd gone out for a run like I always do, thinking nothing was wrong, but instead I found this evidence of her betrayal. It started a couple of weeks ago, really. Things had been tense, but I chalked it up to work stress and the usual grind. We celebrated our anniversary just last weekend, dinner at that fancy place she loves, candles flickering across her face as she smiled, pretending everything was fine. I thought we were good, but I was wrong. Today I came home early, something I rarely do, and I saw her car gone. No message, no call, just an empty driveway. My chest tightened, but I brushed it off, figuring she'd gone out with friends or maybe her boss, Mark. She'd been acting weird lately. Long hours, secretive texts, a strange code in her phone. All little signs I kept ignoring, convincing myself I was overreacting. Then I noticed the trash can outside, overflowing with garbage. I hesitated, curiosity prickling at my skin. I peeked inside and there they were, those hotel receipts. The paper was thin and shiny, crinkled from the rough handling, but I could read the details clearly. One was from a hotel downtown, one she'd never mentioned. The other was from a restaurant, but the most damning part, the date matched our anniversary night. I clenched my fists. My fingers trembled as I peeled the receipts apart, trying not to crush them further. They were proof she'd been sneaking away with someone, hiding it from me. My mind raced. How long has this been going on? How many nights had she gone out only to come home smelling like perfume and guilt? The reality hit hard. She wasn't just cheating, she was lying right to my face. My stomach knotted. I felt a rush of heat in my ears, a mixture of betrayal and fury. I had to sit down, but my legs felt weak. I wanted to scream, to tear into her, but I also knew I had to stay calm. At least for now. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my trembling hands, the memory of that fucking dinner sinking in. The perfect cover-up. The last thing I expected was to find my anniversary being used as a cover for her secret affair. She's been sneaking off with her boss, Mark, right after I leave for work every damn day, and I never saw it coming. How could I have been so blind? I always thought the little signs were just her working late or being stressed. Now I see it was all a lie, an elaborate cover-up. I wasn't just betrayed, I was played. I stare at the receipts again. The date, the time, everything fits. It's so clear now that I wonder how I missed all the signs. The late nights, the secret phone calls, the way her perfume changed. I used to think she was just tired or stressed, but she was lying to my face every day, hiding her affair behind a mask of normalcy. And I'm left holding the evidence that shatters that illusion completely. The next step, I can't let her get away with this. Not after all the years we've been together. Not after trusting her. My mind races with what I should do next. I want to confront her, bash her for her lies, rip open the wound she's caused, but I also want revenge. I want her to feel what it's like to be betrayed, to be played like a fool. The thing is, I've never been the kind to sit quietly and let things fall apart. I'm not going to let her walk away scot-free. I need a plan, a way to hit her where it'll hurt most, without going overboard or destroying everything in the process. I want her to realize that her actions have consequences, big ones. I fold the receipts carefully and shove them into my pocket. My palms are sweaty and my jaw clenched so tight I can feel the tension in every muscle. I stand up, feeling the weight pressing down on my chest. This isn't just about cheating, it's about betrayal on a scale I never expected to face. I tell myself I'm going to handle this, I have to. But deep inside I know that once I make my move, nothing will ever be the same again. The trust is shattered and there's no fixing that. Still, I can't keep pretending everything's fine. It's time to act. Time to find out exactly how far she's gone and what I'm willing to do about it. The moment I found those receipts, I knew I couldn't just ignore it. Ignoring it would be like letting a boil fester, waiting for it to burst in the worst way possible. I kept the crumpled paper in my pocket all evening, pretending everything was normal. Inside, my mind was racing at 1,000 miles an hour, trying to piece together the picture. The truth was staring me in the face, clear as day, but I refused to accept it outright. No, I had to plan, no reckless actions, no impulsive accusations. This had to be calculated. That night I sat alone in the living room, the soft glow of the TV flickering, but I wasn't really watching. I kept thinking about how she'd look when I confronted her, the shock, maybe denial, then guilt. But more than that, I needed to understand what her game was. Because this wasn't just a fling. She'd been sneaking around for weeks, maybe months. This gone on under my nose, and I'd been blind to it. I'd made a decision about how to handle this. No shouting, no breaking things, yet. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. But I also wanted to control the narrative. I had to know exactly what I was dealing with before I made my move. I needed to find out if she'd told Mark about me, how deep this really went, and if there was more than just the affair. The first thing I did was run my fingers through the drawers of her phone, her emails, her messages. I was looking for proof, anything that confirmed what I already suspected. And there it was, things I'd missed or ignored before. Texts exchanged late at night, emojis that seemed innocent but hinted at something more, pictures she'd sent or received that had no reason to be in her phone. The little things, the breadcrumbs that confirmed she'd been deceiving me for a long time. Most of all, I found a series of messages with Mark. They weren't explicit but enough to tell me they'd been in touch frequently. Can't wait to see you tonight. One read. Don't forget the hotel reservation. Another. That last one hit me like a punch to the gut. They'd planned this all along. I felt my stomach tighten, my fists clenched so tightly I thought I'd crush. My phone. I didn't want to keep scrolling, didn't want to see her words anymore. Instead, I closed her phone and sat back, realizing the full scope of her deception. I knew I had to take control of this situation. I had to get ahead of her, not let her spin some story or deny everything. If I was going to do this, it had to be planned and precise. That's when I remembered the anniversary dinner, the perfect cover-up. She'd gone out, dressed to impress, acting all sweet and innocent. And all the while she was with him, Mark. The thought made my stomach churn. I could almost see her, smiling across the table, pretending to be happy while secretly sneaking off to meet her boss. I'd been an idiot to think their relationship was just professional. I realized I couldn't just confront her outright. That would blow everything up, and I wanted to hit her where it hurt most, without her knowing I was onto her yet. I needed a plan, a way to make her feel the consequences of her betrayal, to make her pay without destroying everything immediately. I started to draft a plan in my head. First, I'd gather more evidence, more than just the receipts. Then, I'd find the right moment to confront her when she'd be least prepared. I wanted to see the panic in her eyes, the guilt that she'd been trying to hide. But most of all, I wanted her to understand that I wasn't the fool she might have thought I was. The next step was to figure out how to make her regret this. Not by screaming or trashing the house, but with cold, calculated moves. Maybe I'd follow her next time, see where she really went after work. Maybe I'd get a private investigator if I had to. I didn't want to leave any stones unturned. As I sat there, heart pounding, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let her get away with this without paying a price. If she thought she could hide her betrayal forever, she was dead wrong. I'd make sure she paid, one way or another, because enough was enough. I deserved better, and I was going to make sure she understood that I was not the fool she'd taken me for. The plan was starting to take shape, and I could feel the adrenaline pumping through my veins. This was just the beginning. The next day, I woke up with a clear purpose burning in my chest. I couldn't sit around waiting for her to slip up again or for more evidence to fall into my lap. I had to act, and I had to do it smart. The first step was to gather more proof I could use later when I finally decided to confront her directly. I wasn't just going to accuse her blindly. I wanted to show her I knew everything, that I'd been watching and collecting for weeks. I started by keeping a close eye on her routine. She usually left early, claiming she had meetings, but I noticed she was extra careful about her phone, her purse, even her appearance. Noticing those little things gave me more clues. I decided to follow her quietly one afternoon, just to see where she really went when she said she was working late. I parked a few blocks away, hidden behind some bushes, and watched her slip into that same parking lot I'd seen the receipts from. Then she entered a hotel. My stomach twisted painfully. I'd suspected as much, but Seeing it confirmed was something else entirely. I stayed at a distance, watching her go inside. She was wearing a sleek black dress, her hair perfectly styled, makeup done just right. She looked like she was trying to seduce someone, and I knew exactly who. I didn't want to blow my cover just yet, but I knew I had what I needed. I waited until she was inside, then made a few calls. I found a discreet private investigator who owed me a favor. I didn't want her knowing I was onto her yet, but I needed someone to keep tabs, see if she was meeting him regularly, if she was sneaking away more than just that one night. I paid him to follow her discreetly, and within a few hours I had a detailed report, multiple dinners, hotel stays, even a few short trips she'd taken with Mark. It was exactly what I needed. When I got that report, my jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. Everything was lining up. This wasn't just a fling, it was a full-blown affair, and she'd been making a fool out of me all this time. I felt a surge of rage, hot and raw, that threatened to swallow me whole, but I kept it in check. This wasn't the time to lose control. I spent the rest of the day plotting my next move. I knew I couldn't confront her directly without risking her covering her tracks. No, I had to be strategic. I decided I'd wait for her to come home, act like I knew nothing, then spring my trap when she least expected it. I would have all her lies laid bare, and I'd do it on my terms. That night she came home late, around midnight, smelling faintly of perfume and something else I couldn't quite identify. She was a little tipsy maybe, or just exhausted from her secret meetings. I sat on the couch pretending to be relaxed, but inside my mind was racing. She looked at me, her eyes flickering with guilt and something else, fear maybe. "Hey," she whispered, trying to sound casual, her voice trembling just a bit. "Long day, huh?" I looked at her calmly, feeling the cold edge of my plan sharpen inside me. "Yeah, long enough," I said. "Actually, I've got something to ask you." Her eyes widened slightly. "What?" "You've been lying to me," I said softly but firmly. "I found the hotel receipts, your secret trips, your nights out pretending everything's fine while I was at work thinking everything was normal." Her face went pale. She blinked rapidly, her hands trembling. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think you do," I said, standing up slowly, holding the receipts in my hand. "I know everything now. The affair, the hotel stays, the late nights. You've been sneaking around with Mark, haven't you?" She looked like she'd been punched in the stomach. Her mouth opened, then closed. She was trying to say something, but I kept going. "You lied to my face every day. I should have seen the signs, but I didn't want to believe it. Now I know what you've been doing behind my back, and I'm not going to let you get away with it." She broke down then, tears streaming down her face. "It's not what you think," she choked out. "It's just, I don't know how to tell you, but I was done listening. I'd heard enough. I'd gathered proof, seen her shame, and now I was ready to turn the tables. I'd planned this moment for weeks, and I wasn't going to let her spin some bullshit story to save herself. I wanted her to understand this was the end of the line. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folder I'd prepared earlier. Inside was everything, copies of all the evidence, the reports from the pie, everything laid out clear and unambiguous. I handed it to her. "Read this," I said. "Read every word and then pack your things. You're out of my house, we're done." She looked at me, stunned, broken, and defeated. Her lips trembled, but she didn't argue. She only whispered, "Please, don't do this." I felt a cold satisfaction wash over me, knowing I'd finally taken back control. The betrayal was in the open now, irreversible. As I watched her gather her things, I knew I'd never trust her again. But more than that, I knew I'd finally taken a stand, enough of being played for a fool. Now it was her turn to deal with the consequences. The house was eerily silent after she left. I stood in the doorway, watching her pack her bags with trembling hands, feeling a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. The evidence was laid bare, the receipts, the reports from the pie, everything I needed to finally put an end to this nightmare. But inside I felt hollow. Betrayal doesn't just cut deep, it leaves a scar that takes years to heal. Once she was out of sight, I went straight to the computer. I started drafting a message, one I'd send to everyone we knew, mutual friends, family, maybe even her work colleagues. No point in hiding the truth now. I wanted the world to see who she really was. I needed everyone to know she'd been sneaking around, lying, betraying the vows we'd made. I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty, and she'd ripped that all away. I paused for a moment, staring at the screen. What should I say? How could I phrase it so she'd feel the full weight of her actions? Eventually, I settled on a simple, straightforward message without going overboard, just enough to make her regret the day she ever crossed me. Once I hit send, I felt my shoulders relax, even if just a little. The weight of the secret was finally off my chest. I knew she'd be humiliated, her reputation, her pride, her sense of security all shattered. And honestly, I didn't feel guilty about that. Not anymore. She played her hand, and now everyone else would see what kind of person she truly was. But I knew I couldn't leave it at that. Revenge isn't just about exposing her. It's about making her feel the sting of what she'd done, about showing her she'd lost something precious, me. I'd spent the day planning, and now it was time to put my plan into motion. I reached out to a few trusted friends, people I knew wouldn't judge but would understand. I told them everything, and their reactions were a mix of shock and anger. I needed allies, people who'd help me make her see the consequences of her betrayal. I wasn't about to let her get away with this cleanly, not without paying a price. That evening, I made a call to a professional, someone I'd researched carefully, an expert in subtle, non-violent retribution. I wanted her to feel the repercussions, to see that her actions had consequences far beyond what she'd imagined. Nothing illegal, just enough to make her realize she'd crossed a line. The plan was simple. I'd let her believe she'd won, then hit her where it hurt in a way she wouldn't see coming. Over the next few days, I kept everything under wraps. I kept my emotions in check, even as every fiber of my being wanted to lash out. Every time I saw her face in my mind, I clenched my fists, reminding myself that patience was key. If I rushed, I risked losing control, and I refused to do that. I had to be smarter than her. Meanwhile, I kept in contact with the Pi to stay updated on her whereabouts. He kept an eye on her, reporting that she'd been more cautious, less predictable. She seemed to be paranoid, constantly looking over her shoulder. That was perfect. She should feel like she was constantly under surveillance because she'd been spying on me for months. Now it was her turn. One thing I did realize, her life was about to change drastically. She'd lost her marriage, her reputation, her sense of security. And I was about to make sure she felt it in ways she'd never see coming. I was done being the fool, the one who looked the other way. This was her reckoning. That night I sat alone in the dark, feeling a strange calm settle over me. The plan was set, everything was in motion. I didn't need to shout or scream, my actions would speak louder than words. I'd make sure she understood exactly what she'd lost and what it felt like to be betrayed by the one person she thought she could hide from. She thought she'd pulled one over on me. Well, she was wrong. I'd been humiliated once, and I was about to turn the tables. She'd regret the day she ever crossed that line. And when it was all done, I'd walk away with my dignity intact, knowing I'd finally taken control. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing, it's making someone feel the loss of what they took for granted. The days that followed were the hardest I've ever endured. Every morning I woke up with a knot in my stomach, a mix of anticipation and dread. I knew her routine, when she left, where she went, and how she tried to cover her tracks. But I also knew that patience was my weapon now. I had to let her believe she was still in control, still slipping away with her secret. Meanwhile, I was quietly setting the trap. I kept my phone close, waiting for the right moment to make the next move. Every time I saw her car pull out or heard her footsteps, my heartbeat quickened. I could feel the tension rise in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. I wasn't going to blow this now. I had worked too hard to get to this point. One afternoon, I decided it was time. I arranged to be out of the house for a couple of hours, leaving a pretense of running errands. When I returned, I knew she'd be home. I'd already prepped everything. My surprise was ready, and I'd make her regret the day she ever betrayed me. She was on the couch when I walked in, nervous, trying to act normal. Her eyes flicked nervously, and I saw the small beads of sweat forming on her forehead. She knew I'd done my homework. I didn't say much. I just kept a calm, steady gaze, then slowly pulled out a folder I'd prepared earlier. "Remember this?" I asked, sliding the folder across the table. "All the evidence I've been collecting." Her face drained of color. She hesitated before her trembling hand reached for the folder. She flipped through the pages, hotel receipts, the pie's reports, messages, and photos. Her hands shook visibly as she looked at the proof laid bare before her. "I thought I was smarter than you," I said coldly, watching her try to deny it. "You've been sneaking off with Mark, you've been lying, and I've had enough." She looked up at me, eyes filled with guilt and panic. "Please, I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. "I didn't want to hurt you. You just did." I cut her off sharply. "You've been lying to my face for months. I found the receipts, the messages, everything, and I want to make this clear. I'm done." She broke down into tears, sobbing loudly now. "You don't understand. It was just sex, just a mistake. I didn't think it would get this bad." I shook my head slowly. "That's bullshit. It's not just a mistake when you're sneaking out every night pretending to work late while you're with him. You've destroyed what we had." Her crying turned into quiet hiccups. She looked at me with pleading eyes, desperation etched into every line of her face. I knew I had to be brutal, not with violence but with words, with the truth. I needed to hit her where it hurt. "I want you to leave," I said finally. "Pack your things. You're not welcome here anymore." Her voice caught in her throat. "Can't we just talk?" "No," I interrupted sharply. "There's nothing left to say. You made your choice and I've made mine. You're done, and I'm not going to be the fool anymore." She gathered her belongings in silence, her movements mechanical, her face streaked with tears. When she finally walked out the door, I felt a strange, cold calm settle over me. I'd taken back control finally, but I knew the fallout was just beginning. Later that night, I sat alone, staring at the now empty space where she'd been. The house felt different, lifeless, echoing with the ghost of her betrayal. I knew she'd try to contact me, to plead or beg, but I was done listening. I'd already made my decision. I went online and posted a simple message, one that told the truth without shame or regret. I wanted everyone to see her for what she was: a cheater, a liar, someone who'd thrown away years of trust over a fleeting affair. No more hiding, no more secrets. I was done pretending everything was okay. As I hit send, I felt a strange sense of relief. Yes, I'd lost a partner, but I'd gained clarity. I'd finally taken control of my life, and I wasn't going to let her steal any more of my happiness. The trust was gone, yes, but I'd rebuild again, better, stronger, more aware. And now all I could do was wait and see what fallout her betrayal would bring. One thing was clear. Now she knew I wasn't going to be the fool she thought I was. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions I hadn't expected: relief, anger, an odd sense of liberation. The house was eerily quiet, the silence almost deafening. Every room seemed to echo with her absence, and at first I found myself feeling hollow, like a part of me had been ripped out. But beneath that there was an undeniable clarity. I finally saw things for what they really were. I kept busy, sorting through my feelings but also making pragmatic decisions. I changed the locks, handed over the keys to her, and made a clean break. I knew she'd try to reach out, beg, plead, or guilt-trip me into taking her back, but I was done. No more second chances, no more hope for things to go back to how they once were. Trust was shattered, and I refused to mend it. Some things can't be fixed, only left behind. I also knew I had to protect myself publicly. So I drafted a brief, honest statement about what had happened, sharing only what was necessary. I didn't want to humiliate her further, but I needed to reclaim my dignity and prevent any slimy rumors from spreading unchecked. I posted it on social media, just enough to show I'd moved on, that I was no longer blind to her lies. The reactions poured in. Some friends showed sympathy, others expressed shock, but most appreciated the honesty. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I only said what was necessary: that I'd discovered her affair, that I'd chosen to end the marriage, and that I was focusing on rebuilding my life. It felt good to finally be open about it. No more secrets, no more hiding. In the weeks that followed, I felt a strange sense of relief. The weight of her betrayal hadn't just lifted, it had transformed into a lesson I wouldn't forget. I realized how much I'd been willing to ignore, how many red flags I'd dismissed out of love or hope. I'd been blind, but now I saw clearly. Moving forward, I promised myself I wouldn't let anyone deceive me again. Never again would I ignore the signs, never again let someone take me for a fool. As for her, I heard through mutual friends that she'd moved out of state, trying to start fresh, probably regretting every moment she betrayed her vows. I won't lie, I feel a flicker of satisfaction knowing she's paying the price for her choices. But mostly, I feel stronger. I've reclaimed my dignity, my peace, and my future. Looking back, I realize that the pain was necessary. It forced me to see my own strength, to understand that no betrayal can define me unless I let it. This ordeal showed me the importance of boundaries, honesty, and self-respect. It taught me that sometimes, losing someone is the only way to find yourself again. To those reading this, if you're going through something similar, remember this: betrayal cuts deep, but it also clears the way for growth. Be honest with yourself, trust your instincts, and don't be afraid to walk away. Sometimes the best revenge is simply walking out the door and never looking back. Because at the end of the day, you deserve someone who values you, who respects you enough not to cheat or lie. And if they don't, then it's better to lose them than to be trapped in a lie that'll only destroy you in the long run. Trust me, the healing process is slow, but it's worth every second. You'll come out stronger, wiser, more resilient, and ready to embrace whatever life has next.